my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So as I've said, we are meeting under very extraordinary circumstances, and I believe that this is the first time we've actually used technology in this way to hold the annual general meeting. A video conference is certainly a very new way for us to conduct this, but I do want to reassure everyone present tonight that we've done a review of our model rules and can confirm that this meeting format does actually meet those rules, and I'm satisfied that each of the affiliated and financial clubs of Athletics Victoria as at 30th of June has received details of this meeting and been invited to participate. There's no doubt that the environment is a really challenging one at the moment, and at a time where we'd be getting excited about a number of events and gearing up for a summer season, we find ourselves in lockdown again, and there's no doubt that all of that is, this environment is really challenging for all of us who participate and love this sport. But certainly it's been the cause of a number of really good conversations with the committee, and tonight we'll be bringing you an update on not only how things have progressed during the last season up until the 2019-2020 season, but also since that time, and particularly since we've found ourselves in a global pandemic with COVID-19. So I mentioned at the start that I'm satisfied that all of our affiliated clubs have had the opportunity to participate and attend this meeting tonight. And I'm really pleased to confirm that we've had 40 clubs out of our total of 57 register this evening. And that means that we very clearly have a quorum to hold this meeting under Rule 21.1, where we require more than 30% of affiliated clubs in attendance. And as long as everyone is managing the technology, we believe we'll have 70% attendance tonight, which is a terrific outcome under the circumstances. I'd like to also extend a very special welcome to our life members who are joining us this evening. It really is fantastic to have you here, and to our club presidents, our delegates, members of the club committees, to AV members, I really extend to you a very warm welcome. Given this is the first time that we're holding a meeting in this format, Glenn, it would be great if you could just perhaps remind people of how they can engage during the session, particularly to ask questions via chat or, unmuting themselves. Do you perhaps want to give people a quick overview of that?
Sure, thanks Alison. Welcome everybody. Just a reminder, if you can stay on mute during the annual general meeting. There will be areas of the meeting where you can ask questions, particularly around the financial report. And if you would like to ask any other questions, there is a chat function which should appear on your screen. Please feel free to ask any questions and I'll endeavour to answer them during the meeting, or if not, I will ask each presenter, whether it be the Treasurer or any of members of the committee, to answer that question for you. Just a reminder, please make sure you keep your volume muted.
Thanks so much, Glenn. So we have received, item 2 on our agenda is we have received a number of apologies tonight from life members and club representatives. We received those prior to tonight's meeting and they will be included in the attendance record. But I would just like to pause here for a moment and check with all present to see if there are any additional apologies that you would like to put forward so that we can note those. And if you would like to, you can do that either through chat or again, just unmute yourself and provide any other apologies. I think that looks like we are good, Glenn. Fantastic, thank you everyone. So moving to our third agenda item, which is the minutes of the previous AGM, which was held on the 30th of July 2019. The minutes of that meeting have been emailed previously to tonight to all club representatives, as well as posted on the AV website. So I'm satisfied that the minutes have been sufficiently circulated, and I ask that the members who attended the 2019 AGM, if there are any issues or concerns with the minutes. Again, I'll just pause a moment to see if anyone has any concerns they'd like to raise with how those minutes have been presented. And if not, I would ask that someone please move that these minutes are a true and accurate record of the 2019 Athletics Victoria AGM. Can I get someone to move the motion to accept those minutes?
It's Maureen Austin here. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
Yep.
And that's Maureen Austin.
And Huntley.
Seconded. Can I have someone second that motion, please?
Had a Pam Noden from Glen Huntley via chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pam. Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, matters arising from the previous meeting. There were actually no matters arising from the previous meeting. However, in discussions with the broader Athletics Victoria Committee, we would like to take this opportunity to provide you with an update on some of the activity that we've led across the committee over the last 12 months. And I invite my Vice President, Rob Wendell, to present to the delegation tonight. Rob, over to you.
Thank you. And it's nice to see how some have enabled the virtual background. Nice stadiums in the background. Well done.
Yes, nice to see a track.
We might just give you a couple of quick updates on things that have concerned the committee over the year, and they may be as applicable to club committees as well as the AV committee. So over the past year, the committee has worked in particular on the improvement of the AV governance model, and the governance model of Athletics Victoria has been derived from utilising best practice from Vic Sport and Sports Australia, and it's intended to provide a clear delineation of the roles, responsibilities and powers of the committee management and each of the bodies involved in how the organisation runs. So further, it will enable strategic guidance of the organisation, and in particular, the alignment of the organisation behind the strategic intent. How do we get the entire AV team and supporting clubs behind what we're intending to do in the long term? It ensures the effective monitoring of management by the committee, clarifies the different roles people are playing, responsibilities, powers, etc., and defines the committee's accountability to the organisation. And lastly, ensures a balance of authority so that no single individual has unfettered powers, as well as complying with the required gender composition of the committee. A number of the components of the governance model you can readily access, and they can be found in the About section of the AV website. So if you'd like to, you can just click on that and find some of the underlying and underpinning documents and processes that we're utilizing now. Now, a timely example, just to give an example of a governance component, is risk management. And the committee has taken it upon himself to, on a monthly basis, or every meeting, review all risks, and how appropriate, because we need to mitigate risks threatening the provision of services or even AV's existence, like a global pandemic. And a shout out to Glenn and his team for the sacrifices they've been making to help us manage through this difficult period. That's all about governance. Also, I would like to give a quick update on our strategy. So the last few months have clearly impacted the entire team's ability to progress strategic longer-term initiatives. But we thought to provide a few highlights nonetheless. So over the last period, we have focused in particular on participation, delivery and sustainability. I'd just like to recognize and shout out to Claire Burton, Dr. Caitlin Honey and Jamie Strudley for helping to drive our initiatives going forward. And Caitlin has been instrumental in aligning the AV team to the strategic intent, as well as the participation initiative, by liaising directly with all of you on ways to help improve clubs in their recruiting drive, operation, and gathering feedback. So in addition, we are doing some work to create specific schools offerings in order to capture those athletes that otherwise drop out of the sport. And on the delivery side, we have spent quite a bit of time reviewing our products and services, including our summer program. An example of an outcome of that is the fresh approach to the summer competition, AVSL, with the introduction of new types and the return to 12 rounds. The feedback of which has been encouraging. More work, no doubt, to be done. On the digital front, you will have seen that our website has been refreshed. And in the area of growing our service for competition management that are a strength of the AV team, we have been exploring providing this service to other parties like schools, but also other organizations like Athletics Australia. Likewise, we are also in the process of doing some detailed financial assessment on each of the products and the way they contribute to our overall result. One that we'll talk about a little later. The pandemic also necessitated a thorough analysis on how to best get through this challenging period. The One Sport initiative, in particular the Victorian leg of the intended coming together of Little Athletics and Athletics Australia, has been paused after a great start due to the pandemic. But we are ready to recommence those discussions when we can. It's just a quick update of the major items that have kept us busy.
Thanks so much for that update, Rob. I want to acknowledge particularly the significant contribution that you've made this year, Rob, around the governance work. And in addition to driving a refreshed approach around governance, one of the things that Rob and I have worked on is implementing what I call a very disciplined operating rhythm throughout the business and through our committee meetings. And really, perhaps the best way to summarise that is to make sure that as a committee that are governing this sport, that we are focused on the right things at the right time, and that we have our strategic planning and budgeting processes lined up, as well as the right focus around risk management, to make sure that we have a sustainable sport. And there's been no time where that's been more important than in the last 6 months in this COVID environment. So Rob has done a lot of work in that space. So thanks very much, Rob, for your presentation. I also thought I would just take a moment to give you a broader update on the One Sport or One Athletics initiative at the Athletics Australia level. And it's fair to say that after a very significant announcement back in October last year, personally, I'm enormously excited about the opportunity that One Athletics merger at the national level can bring for our sport, and particularly, the opportunity to really simplify how people can engage in our sport, whether they be athletes, officials, our volunteers, and really anyone that's got an interest, our coaches, to participate in this sport that we all love. So I'm very passionate about this agenda. And while it's true that COVID has certainly impacted our ability to get together at a state level with our Little Athletics counterpart, at the national level, engagement is continuing behind the scenes, and across each state we've had the opportunity to engage with our counterparts, together with Andrew Pryor from Little Athletics Australia, and also Mark Habib and Darren Gosha from Athletics Australia, and have had some really good, fruitful discussions around what we see as the opportunities as well as the challenges of coming together as a single entity at the national level. I'm also really pleased to see that much of the work is happening behind the scenes, and an example of that most recently is that a board nominations committee has been established where we will be able to put together and have the right representation to ensure that when we do get a merged entity, that we have the appropriate representatives on a new company board that will be steering, a joint entity into fruition. I'm actually have been elected as a member of that board nominations committee, and so it's my privilege really to be able to represent Victoria in that forum, but also the other member associations around the country. The last thing I wanted to say about the One Sport or One Athletics initiative is that conversations across the states are progressing at different levels, but perhaps the most exciting update that I can share is that last month in Western Australia, with a resounding vote from both the Little Athletics membership and the seniors membership, there was a decision and a full endorsement by over 90% of members to endorse a merger between Little Athletics Western Australia and Athletics West. And so a new entity has been formed there as really, I think, a great signal of what can be achieved. And it was very pleasing to see such emphatic response and endorsement for their merger. So they are now working with a single board, a single CEO, and a single association, an entity for the basis of athletics in Western Australia. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you more updates as they come through over the next year. But I thought it would be a useful time just to give an update this evening on where things are progressing. I might just pause there for a moment to see from that committee update if there are any questions or comments from the floor. No, okay, well, we'll progress through with our next agenda item. So item 5 is the election of office bearers. So at the coming into the AGM, we had 4 positions that were vacated on the Committee of Athletics Victoria for 2020, and 4 nominations were received. And following on with our model rules, I'm very pleased to confirm that Claire Burton from Western Aths and Ian Rickard from Brunswick have been re-elected to the committee. It's fantastic to have someone of Claire's calibre joining us on the committee or rejoining us on the committee. Claire has served for the last 6 months or so as Joint Vice President, so it's fantastic to see Claire re-elected, and also wonderful to have someone with great history and tenure in the sport with Ian also rejoining the committee for a further term. So I want to congratulate both of you on your re-nomination and re-election. But also I'm really delighted to introduce to you some new members to our committee. So first of all, Kimberly Mulholl from Sandringham Athletics has also nominated and been accepted under the model rules onto the committee. Kim is currently an Australian representative at 2 Commonwealth Games in 2014 and 2018. She's a multinational and state title holder, and in her spare time, when she's not competing, she's also the head of athletics at Caulfield Grammar. It's fantastic again to see Kim come onto the committee. I have no doubt that she will bring an enormous depth of experience as an athlete, but also as a coach. And then finally, Michael Carney from Coburg Harriers has nominated and been accepted onto the committee. Michael is currently the president of Coburg Harriers and has been involved with both VAL and AV as a competitor and a coach, and has done a lot of work, I know, with the track out at Coburg, and brings a lot of experience and general management experience to the committee. So it's fantastic to have such strong new members join us. Finally, I would also like to introduce Kelly Ryan from Yarra Rangers. Kelly was a direct appointment by the committee, and she was appointed back in earlier this month, and that was a very important appointment for us to ensure that we had our 40% quota required by the Victorian government, that 40% gender representation of females on our board. And Kelly brings with her a very significant wealth of experience from within sport with her associations with Western Bulldogs and the Gold Coast Suns within AFL. And her current position from a work context is as General Manager of Operations and Customer Experience at Marvel Stadiums. So again, welcome to you, Kelly. It's fantastic to have you join us on the committee. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce you to the other members of the committee. Rob Wendell, we've already heard from. So Rob is current Vice President and joins us from Diamond Valley. I'd also like to introduce you to Grant McKenzie from Box Hill, who has been our Treasurer for the last 12 months and done an outstanding job in particularly restructuring a lot of our financial reporting across Athletics Victoria to help us as a committee make much more informed decisions with better financial insight into the performance of the organisation. And then finally, our final committee member I'd like to acknowledge is Jamie Strudley from Yarra Rangers. Jamie was President for 2018-2019 membership year and did an outstanding job in the role. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the committee. It's been a really challenging 18 months, I think, with the last membership year, but also the last 6 months, and your contribution and commitment to the sport and the committee has just been fantastic. And I also thank you for your support of me in my first year as President.
And Alison, if I could chime in on behalf of the committee and thank you for your leadership and support in the last 12 months. It's been great to have you leading the team, especially in those difficult and sometimes very hard discussions you're having with our colleagues. So thank you very much.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Claire. Okay, so moving on now to our next agenda item, item 6, which is our financial statement. And as I've said, it's a great pleasure for us to have Grant McKenzie on board on the committee as our Treasurer. Grant has just done a sensational job for us over the last 12 months and certainly the last 6 months. And so I invite him now to step up and present his financial report with the Treasurer's report. Over to you, Grant.
Thanks, Alison. Good evening, fellow members and guests. My name is Grant McKenzie, as Alison has introduced me to, and I'm the Treasurer for Athletics Victoria. It's an honour to present the 2019-2020 financial report to you on behalf of Athletics Victoria Committee. Last year we had a loss of $48,000. However, for this last financial year, there's a profit of $11,000, which was marginally down on budget. So certainly an improved result from what we had the prior year. In this year, our revenue increased by $64,000, but that does include a $65,000 JobKeepers allowance that we received at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis and at the end of our financial year. Whilst there was an increase of $52,000 coming from registrations, there was an offset with less income coming from competition and development expenses. From an operating cost point of view, this increased by $5,000, but importantly, within those costs, it included an inventory write-down of redundant merchandise of about $85,000. But that was offset by additional savings that we made in our employee costs of about $84,000. And this was driven by the net amount received in the secondment revenue from Athletics Australia. If you remember, Rob earlier on mentioned about some of the work that the committee was doing, that the association was doing outside of just Victoria, was providing resources and support to the likes of Athletics Australia, where we got revenue in return for that. In terms of the depreciation, this was increased by about $50,000, and this was offset by corresponding savings in the office and administration costs. And this is really just due to the change in accounting standards, where accountants change standards from time to time just to confuse everybody, and thinking that it makes it look a lot easier. But essentially, we've had a rise in one cost and a decrease in another cost, but it's just an offsetting accounting adjustment. As a result of the year's performance, we've ended the year with a very strong balance sheet, with $469,000 in equity and a $337,000 positive cash position. The current ratio, which represents the ability of the organisation to pay for debts from cash and easy converted assets, is 1.10 times, which is indicating there's no really immediate cash flow risk to the organisation. Now, that was prior COVID coming through, and I'll cover the COVID challenges that we have in a minute when I get into the next year's budget. But certainly starting off the financial year, we've ended last year with a very, very strong balance sheet. In terms of the total assets, again, there's a bit of an accounting anomaly that I want to explain, is that they have increased by $829,000, but the liabilities have increased by $819,000. And most of this is, again, primarily driven by the way the accounting standards have had to be implemented, where we had to capitalize the value of the lease of our property and show the liability for that. So essentially, there's no real big jump in assets. We haven't gone and spent a whole lot of money buying some assets and committing to new liabilities. It's merely an accounting change. So hopefully nobody has seen that and sort of wondered what on earth has happened in the year. There's nothing been dramatically changed from the year before. From that, leading on from that, the accounts, they've been audited with no qualifications, issues or concerns from the auditors. And as such, the committee would like to thank Glenn and his team for the diligence throughout the year to maintain accurate and well-governed accounting records. Just moving on, looking forwards in terms of the budget, Athletics Victoria is a not-for-profit organisation, and it's our intention and the goal of the committee is to continue to build and develop Athletics Victoria, the brand and athletics, by reinvesting every dollar earned back into our sport. So essentially the goal is not to make money and the goal is not to lose money, but to make sure that we've really got a strong organisation to deliver the services that are required by the various clubs and members. The budget for the next financial year, as you can imagine, has been extremely challenging and is fluid based on the dynamics that we faced with. And I think everybody's involved, it's not a unique thing to ourselves. Every business, every organization, from a business point of view, from a personal point of view, from a social point of view is different. And we know that it's changing day by day. And so we have certainly had to put a budget together where we've got levers and flexibility that will enable us to make sure that we can still maintain the strength of the club, the organisation, and making sure that Athletics Victoria can continue to operate, build and develop Athletics Victoria with a maximum membership participation and engagement. So with that in the background, our latest forecast will result in a profit of $20,000 for the next financial year. And this has been as a result of ensuring that and this will result in ensuring that the balance sheet at the end of the financial year will still be strong as it was at the beginning of the year. Now, some of the key assumptions, and I know there's some questions being asked about, can we survive through this period? How are we doing in terms of the activities that have taken place? The $20,000 profit that we've got at the moment for the budget has some key assumptions that have been made in achieving this outcome. It has taken into account that we haven't been able to have a winter program. It is assuming that we'll do maybe 2 or 3 winter events at the end of the lockdown period, where we've changed the costing of those particular events to only require a participation fee of $35, and then a once-off $10 for those who do not wish to be a member for the whole season. So generally wise, what you'll find is a certain percentage of our athletes only join membership for winter only. And so it wouldn't be cost effective for them to actually join and then pay $35 per event. So what we have done is decided that we would charge a once-off fee for membership as a membership fee to cover the insurance, and it will be refundable if they participate in subsequent case on the membership for summer. We have assumed at this stage a full summer program, but what we have done is reduce the assumption around our membership to 75%. And what we did was we had a look to see what percentage of our membership in the past has only taken up, have only participated in winter sport, and that's right about 15 to 20%. And so we've reduced the number to about 75% on the expectation that some may still drop out and not participate in the summer season as well. We have got no participation packages in our numbers for winter and no max packages because obviously there's only going to be a summer season. In terms of the assumptions, we have assumed that we'll get job keepers through to the end of September. So we haven't taken into account the latest announcements where the job keepers will continue through to early next year, although on a reduced basis. We've had BAS relief, and we have included in our numbers a Victoria Government survival package of $125,000, which is the submission for the grant has been made. We are 95% confident that we will get it, but we're just waiting for that confirmation to come through. In addition to that, right at the beginning of the onset of COVID-19 and the first lockdown, there was work done with Glenn and the team to reduce the costs and the working hours of the staff as best as we can. And so from the start of COVID-19 to now, and going through to July, August, there's a range of work hours that were reduced from 0 up to 60%, depending on the requirement of the staff, depending on the amount of leave that the person may have had or available to have to take to compensate for that as well. And so essentially a lot of key measures have been taken to make sure we can survive. And there are still other benefits that will come through, such as the job keepers coming through and the extended lockdown period that we're seeing in Victoria at the moment. In the event that the winter program does not take place, the impact on the summer programs and membership, that impact will be assessed relative to the impact on the extension of JobKeeper and the other available subsidies in determining what action we need to take around the cost reduction, the membership participation fees, and to make sure that the association can continue on a financial viable manner as well. It is important, there's a lot of the costs, some of the costs we have are variable. So if we don't have competition, there's some cost savings that naturally come through for it. But there are some costs that we don't get. There's revenue streams, obviously, that we get in that we wouldn't have costs associated within that. But thankfully, some of the subsidies that we have received and the continued subsidization, as I said, of job keepers will help us get through this period of time as well. It is too early to tell whether, what will happen to our membership if the impact carries on through to summer, but more than likely that if we don't have, if the summer program is interrupted because of the continuation of COVID-19, we would have to relook at the membership fees and try and look at a package that will work to make sure that the members will still sign up for the association, but also have a cost benefit in terms of the participation in activities as well. So that is a constant evaluation that we will continually do that as well. In addition to that, we have made representation to the AV Trust to receive additional support if required. And so they have been provided with financials, cash flows, forecasts of what we are doing and how we're managing affairs. And if we had the situation that we needed additional help, we are trying to make sure that we've got a backup plan in the event that things are completely pear-shaped in terms of the continuation of lockdown of COVID-19. As I say, unfortunately, there's no much certainty on how long the lockdown will occur, but we're confident the actions taken so far, such as all outstanding leave being taken, and further steps that will be taken if required to get us through the crisis. So before I move to adopt the 2019-20 financial report, I'd like to invite any questions from the floor and see whether we can actually hopefully have responded to some of the questions and challenges that I've asked. I know it isn't easy. I'm in a finance business myself, and we're changing the budgets every week. It's just one of those things that we just got to keep our finger on the pulse. So just looking at Jeremy's centre question, is there anything else that we can do to assist Athletics Victoria employees who've had the hours impacted? Jeremy, I think, certainly I think that is something where I think that we can take offline with Glenn in terms of if there's anything where we are finding, what we are doing is where we having job keepers is keeping people employed as to the limit that we can. And certainly if the areas that we can look to the clubs to get support for those members, for those staff, we certainly can come back to you guys on that. Any other questions? Maureen, the question Maureen has asked, just in case I don't know if everybody sees the the chat line, but just wanted to clarify the 2,000 surplus. And let me clarify, it's a 20,000 surplus, is on the assumption that we receive the 125,000 grant. So again, we monitor that, and that's exactly why we have made approaches to the AV Trust, that if these things don't materialise, we do have a fallback position. At this stage, there's no reason why we don't think we'll get it. As I said, there's about a 95% confidence that we should be getting that number. Any other questions?
Peter Barry.
Okay.
I just think it's important that the clubs be aware that Glenn and his staff and the board or the committee, as you are, the clubs be aware of the hard work that's being done by the staff and the committee in this really tough time to keep AV afloat. And most of us are in a very bad predicament, especially financially, and you guys, people are making commitments about salaries and time, and as someone who sits on the ABSL committee and we're aware of what's happening, we've got to tell the clubs and their members what is happening to keep the sport going, because we don't know what is going to happen. We're lucky here in Bendigo because we're free to move around, but you guys in the city are not free to move around, and just be supportive of our peak body and the sport. That's my comment.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Yeah, very much.
Certainly, Glenn has done a tremendous job with his team, and the guys have continued. You heard from Rob earlier on about the strategy and trying to, the first priority is making sure we can survive and continue, but leverage the resources we've got to provide the support and help that we can to the clubs as well. Any other questions before So I'd like to move to motion that the 2019 and 2020 Athletics Victoria financial report be accepted. And so do I have a seconder for that acceptance? Everybody running away from finance?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you very much, Grant. And I know you and the members of the finance subcommittee, Jamie, yourself, Glenn, have done an exceptional amount of work with the numbers over the last few months. And I think most weekends I've seen emails coming through from the three of you, really making sure that we're in the best possible financial shape that we can be in. So just really want to reiterate Peter's comments about the hard work and the sacrifices that both the AV team and members of the committee are putting into to really make sure that we do steward the association and our sport through what's an enormously challenging time, and we really can't see. We certainly wish we had a crystal ball right now, but hopefully we, all of the endeavours that we're putting in place, I think are going to make sure that we make the most of every opportunity that we have to keep our association really strong. I know that there's a number of questions that people have around a return to sport and what that might look like once restrictions are eventually lifted. And so, Glenn, I'd just like to throw to you to give an update on what your team are planning for when those restrictions do come off.
Thanks, Alison. Just want to share my screen, just make sure everyone can see it. So I just wanted to quickly go through two slides about some of the challenges that the entire AV team are looking at and have been looking at since we went into lockdown in April. And we had lockdown 1.0 and we were ready to go on the 1st of July with a return to competition. Unfortunately, in the morning of the 1st of July, we had a conversation with government. We're about to push the button on the schools and modified Xcr program. And then in the afternoon, the Premier shared the large number of cases from community transmission that resulted in the start of lockdown 2.0. So there is a plethora of work going on behind the scenes. The challenge when we come out of lockdown is really around what competition will look like. And I've tried to visualise it for you so everyone can get a bit of an understanding. Clearly the competition with the question marks in the middle. First of all, engaging our members and finding out what exactly they're prepared or what they would like to see for any balance of the season. Our officials, our wonderful workforce, the challenges are ensuring that safety comes first with all of those components. We need to and have taken into account the current age demographic of our officials, what exposure officials and our volunteers would get during a normal competition as we've known it previously, what effect PPE equipment would have if we provided it, their willingness to participate. We've just completed an official survey asking them some pretty direct questions about the safety measures in place, and more importantly, coming out with some training about what to do on the return to competition. Another challenge, or dare I say it, just a stake in the ground, is the venues. Venues are managed by various groups, by clubs, by a board of management, or by local government. We have to look at the capacity of the venue. What can it hold if there are any restrictions? What space is available? What facilities will be open and what we can get access to? And more importantly, what equipment we can use to run the competition. And in the return to training manual, I got a lot of feedback about some of the directions from the Department of Health around use of pole vault and also high jump, which came directly from the Institute of Sport. And we're fully aware of those challenges and the impact it has on conducting a competition. And the competition format may in fact change, even right down to relay battens. Richard Lavich and I have had a conversation about the challenges of ensuring that all the equipment is clean. Plus the restrictions themselves on spectators, 1.5 metre physical distancing, social gatherings, facilities. Do we have designated areas at all venues, whether they be parks run by Parks Fit for cross country or weather tracks? Compliance, obtaining all the contact details. In New South Wales, they ran their first cross country competition. They had 500 max that they can compete, and they had to take down all the contact details. There's a walks competition that was deferred last weekend in Queensland, and that they had 100 people register to watch the walks. And these are the things that we're preparing for electronically, hopefully, or the paper method. The physical distancing to ensure we're compliant. What are the maximum numbers that we can have right across venues? And as I mentioned, our volunteers, our club helpers, our administrators. What does the program of event look like for our club helpers? What's their exposure, and what sort of PPE equipment can we provide to them? So I just wanted to give you some sketch maps around cross country and AVSL, and I know that this will provoke conversation. And what I would recommend is that you provide any feedback that you like through the various channels to any member of my team directly. You have an email address. We're accessible throughout this period. But for cross country, our current plan is, as Grant mentioned, is 4 rounds in September. That is likely to change based on results. 3 individual rounds and 1 relay round. It may not necessarily be as we've seen it in the past. It may not be the venues that we've seen in the past. The challenge that we have at the moment, for example, is Bundoora is closed for all of September. The dates will be a challenge. Venues will be a challenge. Distances that people want to participate in, capacity, what restrictions are there? Can we actually run a state trial for everyone to participate in nationals? And it may be that our state trial for cross country, if we are allowed to participate in Adelaide, is conducted, for example, around an athletics track in a confined area. These are all the different options that we're working through at the moment. And the impact and influences that has now been corrected from a presentation perspective, thanks to Ross. We need to understand what is going to be the impact on post-COVID to our membership. What's going to happen with participation? We may think that participation may fall, but it may in fact be the other way, because all of the mass participation events like the fun runs and so forth have already announced they've been cancelled. We're going to do our best to promote what we do in order to build participation. We also have to take into account the financial viability, make sure that we, as Grant said, meet those requirements. Individual financial circumstances is a key priority for all of our members. There's varying ranges of financial circumstances that everyone's suffering from post-COVID. So there will be discussion around entry fees and membership, as Grant has spoken about, capacity and also consumer preference. So these are the revolving topics that we talk about on a daily basis within the AV team, right across community engagement, sport delivery, coaching, officials, recreational running, state teams, and performance. So for AVSL, exactly the same impacts and influences. What's the membership going to prefer to do? What's happening around participation, financial viability? Again, what dates are available? What venues are available? Again, managed by the three criteria that I mentioned before. Will we be able to run the same program before? Probably not. Depending upon the restrictions, we may have to look at a revised program, a shorter program to get people in and out. There could be groupings of disciplines. But the key point that I want to be really loud and clear so that everyone walks away confident and not nervous that there is any conspiracy theory around this is that nothing has been decided. Every option is still on the table. And those options will change in line with the restrictions that we get from, if any, from the Chief Medical Officer and also from the Victorian Government. So that's a very brief and full summary. As I said, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to direct them via the chat or directly to the team, but we'll keep you updated as best we can.
Great, that's a terrific update. Thanks, Glenn. And, I'm sure everyone can appreciate that we're dealing in such an uncertain environment that it does leave us with lots of questions. But I do know that Glenn and the team are very much geared up to be able to return to competition and return to sport as quickly as possible. We've talked around what will be involved in very quickly being able to stand up events, and I'm very confident that when we do reach a space where we can return and resume competition, that we'll be able to meet the challenges that this new world we're working in will no doubt throw up for us, but also that the team will be able to respond very swiftly. So thanks for that update, Glenn. Moving on to item 7, our annual report. And I will shortly move a motion to receive and adopt the 38th annual report for Athletics Victoria. But just a reminder that the report was actually sent out earlier this afternoon. It looks terrific, and the report itself is an important document for us because it's actually a historical record of not only the things that we've been talking about tonight that we've done at a strategic level within the sport, but it also records the outstanding performances of so many members of our athletics community and becomes a great historical record for what actually happened in the season that was 2019 through 2020. So I hope that you've all had an opportunity to at least briefly review the annual report, and for some of you to go through it in detail. And I would like to move a motion that the 38th annual report for Athletics Victoria be adopted. Can I have someone please to move that motion?
Wayne Hogan from Knox, Alison.
Thank you so much, Wayne.
And Daryl Kilmartin raised his hand, I think, to move or second.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So now we come to what I think is one of the real joys of tonight's agenda, which is the award nominations. And this is the opportunity we have to really celebrate the outstanding contributions that members of our community have made to our sport over the years. The Athletics Victoria Committee convened the Awards Committee to meet and provide recommendations for Life Membership, Merit and Regional Services Awards and Distinguished Services Awards for 2019 and 2020. The committee consists of Maureen Austin, Paul Jens, Peter Burke and AV Committee member, returning AV Committee member, Ian Rickard. And on behalf of everyone here, I'd really like to sincerely acknowledge your work as a committee and thank you for your recommendations and the due diligence that you put into ensuring the most deserving people within our community are recipients of these important awards. As is customary, the presentation of medallions for Life Membership and Merit Awards and the 50-Year Service Awards are typically presented at Zatopek 10 in December, or at a time that is convenient for all recipients. And I would like to acknowledge that last year's Merit Award recipient, Stephen Gaffney, has actually not yet received his medallion. However, we have arranged to present that to him at the Victorian State Championships. So after that just brief introduction, I'd now like to move and take you through the nominations, and we ask tonight for acclamation from the membership on the following 4 Life Membership nominations. So our first recipient is a very worthy David Armstrong. David continues to be a very significant contributor to our sport, with his involvement in Athletics Victoria and the summer competition as chief scorer and designer of Score Manager and Results Hub. David's a member of Diamond Valley, and there he continues to offer hours of service and contribution from awards meetings and evenings, committee meetings and across different fundraising events. Athvic TV is now 13 years old, can you believe it? And thanks to David's contribution, there is an extraordinary amount of content that is available. 2,700 videos, nearly 3 million views of those videos over the 13 years. There is nearly 100,000 hours of content and just under 8 million impressions. Just such a significant contribution. And so if David is not behind the camera capturing Xcr, track and field champs or mile footage, he is developing programs that provide our members with real-time access to entries and results. The Committee of Athletics Victoria has endorsed the nomination of David Armstrong for Life Membership, who I believe is here this evening, and I would ask the membership to take yourself off mute and show your acceptance by acclamation. Very warm congratulations, David. Moving on to our next recipient, Peter Fortune. Peter began his athletics career in Brighton in 1961 in the sprints, and he competed through to the early 70s, where he finished his competitive career with Mentone. He then began a 51-year career coaching in 1969 as the club coach at Brighton and later at Mentone. One of his early successes was triple jumper Phil Wood, who competed in the 78 Commonwealth Games representing New Zealand. During the 80s, he also coached Olympian Gary Minahan and national 400-metre hurdles champion Dale Horrobin. In 1991, Peter began coaching Catherine Freeman to Olympic and World Championships and Commonwealth Games gold medals. And normally we'd be in the Cathy Freeman room tonight, so it's a bit sad that we're not able to celebrate Peter's contribution to Cathy's career in that room. But the important thing is that we are celebrating his contribution, and further accolades include current athletes, Katrina Bissett, who last year broke the long-standing national women's record for the 800 metres and was World University Games champion. Between 2006 and 2014, Peter was the Tasmanian Sports Institute athletics coach. However, he's now returned to mainland Australia, where he can coach state, national and international athletes. I would like to confirm that the Athletics Victoria Committee has endorsed Peter's very worthy nomination for Life Membership, and I would again ask the membership tonight to show your acceptance by acclamation. Our next recipient, unfortunately, was planning to be here tonight but has had some technology issues. Pam Ryan began her athletics career in the 1950s and competed for University High. A talented all-rounder, winning the 1958 Victorian Women's Championship pentathlon and long jump. By the end of her competitive career, she'd won just a phenomenal 46 state titles, not counting relays in sprints, hurdles, jumps and pentathlon. Nationally, she won over 17 titles over sprint, hurdles and long jump. Just an extraordinary athlete. Internationally, Pam represented Australia at 3 Olympics, 64 Tokyo Games, the 68 Games in Mexico, and then finally in Munich in 1972. During those events, she brought home 1 Olympic silver medal and bronze medals. She also represented Australia in 3 Commonwealth Games in Perth in 1962, Kingston in 66 and Edinburgh in 1970, winning a phenomenal total of 6 gold medals. She set 2 world records over 80-metre hurdles, 1 record over 100-metre hurdles and 3 over the 200-metre hurdles. After Pam retired from competitive racing, she began coaching, which she did until a few years ago when ill health intervened. Pam was also an important role as a Victorian official. In 2008, Pam was inducted into the Athletics Australia Hall of Fame, a very worthy recipient of that award as well. Tonight, it's my pleasure to announce that Pam's nomination has been endorsed by the Committee of Athletics Victoria for life membership. And I would again ask the membership tonight to show your acceptance by acclamation.
Their son Dave so he's in Tokyo. And now Veronica.
And then our final nomination this evening is Ian Upton. From information provided with his nomination, Ian commenced his involvement with athletics in the 1980s. Along with a number of positions, Ian has been the AIMS course measurer for cross-country events and the Melbourne Marathon. As the current president of Keilor St Bernard's, a position he's held for a phenomenal 33 years, Ian is known for his dedication to all things that are IT. And as a scorer, Ian has managed entries, results and scores, amongst other things, at nearly every round of summer competition at Yellow Zone. Ian served as a member of the Athletics Victoria Board from 1990 to 1996 and has held numerous positions on both winter and summer committees. In 2020, he received an AV Merit Award for his service to athletics and received his Yellow Zone Official of the Year in seasons 2015-16 and also in seasons 2017-18. Ian's passion for his club is a testament to his dedication to this sport, where he mentored, supported many athletes along their journey. He is often the first to arrive to set up laptops, printers, connections to photo finish, and the last to leave on any given day. Special mention should also be made to his long-standing combi that has supported Ian across 30 years of service to his club and to AV. So I'm really delighted to confirm Ian's nomination and ask again for you all to show your acceptance by acclamation.
Oh, yes, yeah. You know, they had to set up their house.
Thank you, and I'll just ask you all to mute once more. Thank you. Moving on to the next section, to our Merit Awards. We have a number of recipients this year, so I'll read out the citations and then ask the membership to show its acceptance at the end. Our first Merit Award recipient is John Coleman. John was the Chair of Victorian Officials Committee, an accredited facilitator and educator for IAAF officiating courses, and competition director for the cross-country season and summer competitions. He was awarded the 2009 Official of the Year and was instrumental in co-facilitating the first TOEIC seminar outside of the traditional Queensland setting. A member of Richmond Harriers, John provided great support and guidance to Athletics Victoria over the last 17 years. Our next recipient is Tim Erickson. Tim's athletics career began with Ivanhoe Harriers in 1966 as a junior walker, and he continued at top level to 1984 when injury forced him to retire. He placed 28th in 28 Victorian and 6 Australian championships during his career, and in 75 won the national 50k walk in Perth, setting an Australian record. In 1978, Tim represented Australia at the Edmonton Commonwealth Games, where he finished 3rd in the 30k walk. He then took up coaching while still competing as more of an advisor in the early days, and he helped Olympians Dave Smith and Andrew Jackno before they went to AIS. Became a serious coach when his son Chris decided to become a race walker, and he coached Chris for 12 years before Chris went on to the AIS. In the early 90s, Tim got into officiating as well as continuing his involvement with the Victorian Race Walking Club. He continues to run all the main Victorian-based road walks for Athletics Australia and Athletics Victoria. Our next merit winner or nominee is Craig Marney. As well as coaching, officiating and being the driving force behind Mornington Peninsula, Craig was chair of the Summer Committee in the early 2000s and facilitated the much talked about town hall meetings. An accomplished official, photo finish and admin delegate were 2 roles where Craig jumped in at the local and state level. Craig's an accredited coach in sprints, hurdles, middle distance and jumps, and he continues to support the development of local athletes at club and state level across both winter and summer competitions. Moving on, Patricia Robinson began her involvement with Athletics Victoria in 1969. Pat is the ultimate volunteer timekeeper, a role that she's continued to officiate in up until her retirement in 2018. However, her other passion has been St Stephen's, where she is the gatekeeper for historical knowledge, governance and operations of the club to integrate with Athletics Victoria. As an official within Victoria, Pat has kept time across interclub meetings, cross-country, Vice Chabs or Vic Chabs, school competition and Milers Club, along with her service to St Stephen's Harriers, and she has devoted 50 years of service to her sport. Just a couple to go, and Ron Stobas is our next recipient. I hope I've said that correctly. Ron started with Essendon back in 1954 before establishing the then St Bernard's Club in 1965, now known as Keilor St Bernard's. Rob is also a co-founder of Keilor Little Athletics in 1969. In 82, Ron was made life member of Keilor St Bernard's and would go on to clock up 50 years service via coaching and club administration in 2015. Ron is the current coach, and his contribution in this area spans a significant 54 years, which has been recognised when he received the AV Coach of the Year award in 2004. A former member of the VAA Coaching Committee, Ron was also part of the Victorian Junior Development Committee, team manager all schools cross-country championships for 4 years, and continues as an Athletics Victoria official as a walks judge at Aberfeldy for over 25 years. And then finally, our final nominee is Lynn Wolovic, receiving her 35-year officiating service badge this year. Lynn has officiated at interclub, state and national competitions and has been appointed to a variety of roles, including chief track judge, lap scorer, chief umpire, and various field events. Working with our schools, Lynn has considerable patience and a wonderfully warm and supportive attitude towards officiating, and has earned the respect and admiration of her peers. She's also volunteered for numerous roles in walks competitions and championship events for both Athletics Australia and Athletics Victoria. So, ladies and gentlemen present tonight, I would really ask you to warmly acknowledge our Merit Award recipients, John Coleman, Tim Erickson, Craig Marney, Pat Robinson, Ron Stobas and Lynn Wolovic. Our final awards are for 50 years service, and as I mentioned in the signing, I'm very pleased to announce our recipients, our recipient for 2020 are Ron Stobas and Pat Robinson. congratulations on 50 years of contribution to our sport. So before we move to the next item, this is normally where we would present the Xcr Winter Pennants. But however, due to the current restrictions, our pennants will be mailed to clubs in the coming weeks. And I know a number of you will be disappointed that we're not able to acknowledge that tonight. It's always such an important and exciting moment within the agenda, but unfortunately this environment and this platform is not ideal for presentation of those pennants. So finally brings us to item 9, which is general business. There was no motions or particular items of general business. So I would like to thank everyone for attending this evening via video conference. I do appreciate this has been a very different format for us, but I hope we've been able to keep you well informed with the activities that we've done over the past competition year, and also given you some insight into the way that we are importantly ensuring the future of our sport through what is no doubt going to go down as one of the most challenging seasons for us. Glenn, is there anything else that you would like to add before we close off tonight?
No, thank you.
Excuse me?
No, yes, hi, Ian.
Hi, I've got a question.
Yes.
It's a surrounding question. The COVID-19 will finish sometime.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that time, there'll be all sorts of sports clamouring to sign up people for their individual sports. My question is this, do you have an advertising strategy or anything to increase participation? Once this scramble starts for people to go in, participate in their particular sport, how do we grab the kids? And I know whether you got the run on from little lads, that might be a start, to grab and hold them to participate in athletics. Because at the moment, girls are running to AFLW, which is a summer sport, and other kids go to soccer and various other sports, netball, footballs, you name them. Basketball, it's a cool thing to do. So have you got a strategy in place at all to try and entice younger ones into our sport?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, Anne, and thank you for raising that. Look, core pillars of our strategy are absolutely about driving increased participation in our sport, and we certainly have a very strong engagement into school communities. That's been a core part of the strategy and has actually driven quite a significant increase in participation and in membership. Also, I think we've seen quite significant growth over the last year in recreational runners who've been a key part of our strategy as well. One of the things that we're also doing is really looking to target kids who are not active in sport at all. And we did a pilot of a program really through the December-January period of IAAF kids into our community on behalf of Athletics Australia. And that was a really successful pilot. And that is a strategy that we have been in discussions with Athletics, or Little Athletics Victoria, to partner with us in that response. But Glenn, I might just throw to you as well to highlight some of the other things that we're doing to really make sure that we do take advantage of what I think will be a very strong drive for people to return to a competitive sport.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. And I'll keep it brief because we did, as you mentioned at the top of this, we didn't have any questions regarding general business. It will be an evolving communication strategy. One of the reasons that Pam Ryan has joined us from on the direct appointment is that her strength, particularly with her current role at Marvel Stadium. The balance we have to find, Ian, is that we did the white paper in 2018, which included some comprehensive questions around who was responsible for recruitment, and the membership and the clubs came back and I think by a majority said that, look, clubs have got obviously lots of strengths on the ground and relationships, and that our role at AV was to support where we can. We have increased that support with resources with Caitlin Honey running community engagement and Maddie Sheedy, including in that is Sean Whipp on a number of investigative products around how we get more of the school kids involved. As I mentioned in my CEO's report and also through the annual report, our biggest growth area was through schools. And that's the one direct touch point that we have with Athletics Victoria, whereby we engage with schools, particularly through the summer and the winter series. Your question, though, is probably more in 5 or 6 parts, because you are right. There are lots of other events, including Mother's Day Track Classic, all of the participatory fun runs that have been cancelled for various reasons around compliance. The challenge, though, is that we need to make sure we've got the product that attracts these kids. And in fact, any member from 12 years right up to our masters age groups. And that's why, as part of the strategy that Rob was discussing earlier, we have to constantly review our product offering. I can't give you an answer right now, Ian. I can't say we're doing A, B, C and D simply because I'm not the kind of person that would commit $250,000 worth of membership's money into an advertising campaign unless I could get $1 million back in membership. However, what I can tell you is that it's a constant discussion, particularly with Harper, our external agency, who have already done some market research. We've just completed a brand assessment, which we're going to release to the membership in the coming weeks, about why people or what people think the value for money is with Athletics Victoria, what they think of our brand, how we can improve. And it's a real 360-degree look at what we stand for. And not surprisingly, the 2 key matters that came out of that assessment was that our brand is elite, and that the second part is that our communication within the membership has not been good, according to those that are surveyed. So they're 2 key pillars of our strategy that we're feverishly working. Like a duck swimming on a pond, we might be graceful, but our legs are moving at 100 miles an hour. So I hope that provides you with some comfort.
And look, I think the other piece I'd just like to close that line of questioning on is that we do have some significant advantages over other sports, and particularly some of the ones that you mentioned, Ian, where the return conditions and the return environment is going to be simpler in an athletics context than it would be in, say, football. And we will have a very good opportunity to take advantage of that. So I'll just pause for a moment and just check if there are any further questions before we conclude tonight's proceedings.
Can I have a question, please?
Yes, Paul.
It's not really a question. It's something to do with the past records of this great association. I've been updating the Victorian Championship results going right back to the 1890s. I realise that you weren't around in that particular period of time. However, you may have had people like your parents, grandparents, great-great-grandparents going back in time. Unfortunately, a lot of the material we've had have been thrown away. So I'm still trying to piece together things from newspapers, fielding programs, and club histories. So if you have anything at home dating back in the past and you want to get rid of it, or you think it might help, we greatly appreciate it. My email address, I can give you easily. It's at AV, or just contact AV, and anything that will add to it. Most of it's all up on AV's website. You've got to dig into events in the past. You'll find all those old historical championships. You may be there yourself. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a great call out, Paul. And I'd certainly encourage anyone that has any of those wonderful pieces of memorabilia or history of our sport to respond to your call. I think that provides a fantastic note for us to close on. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming tonight under extraordinary circumstances. I hope that while it's disappointing that we haven't had the opportunity to engage socially, I think it's been really important for us to hold this event and be able to bring you the story of what we've been working through. And I just thank you for your commitment to the events tonight, but more broadly for the role that you play in our sport. I also want to take the opportunity to really extend my thanks to Glenn and his team. Glenn, this is my first year as president. It's been fantastic working with you. I think we've got a great partnership, and your team are really second to none. We've earned a reputation around Australia as holding the best events in the country. And I just want to take a moment to thank your team, and also to thank the board and the committee for working together over the last 12 months. It's been fantastic. So in closing, I'd just like to say, please everyone stay safe and well, and I wish the best to you and your families through this challenging time, and I really look forward to seeing you when we do return ultimately to competition, and then where we take advantage of what I think will be a drive to return to physical activity, and an environment where we can actually really grow as an association with new members. Thank you, and thanks for attending.
Thanks, Alison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.